The angel of life. Seek not the law in thy scriptures, for the law is life, whereas the scriptures are only words. I tell thee truly, Moses received not his laws from God in writing, but through the living word. The law is living word of living God to living prophets for living men. In everything that is life is the law written. It is found in the grass, in the trees, in the river, in the mountains, in the birds of heaven, in the forest creatures and the fishes of the sea. But it is found chiefly in thyself. All living things are nearer to God than the scriptures which are without life. God so made life and all living things that they might, by their ever-living word, teach the laws of the heavenly Father and the earthly Mother to the sons of men. God wrote not the laws in the pages of books, but in thy heart and in thy spirit. They are in thy breath, thy blood, thy bone, in thy flesh, thine eyes, thine ears, and in every little part of thy body. They are present in the air, in the water, in the earth, in the plants, in the sunbeams, in the depths and in the heights. They all speak to thee, that thou mayst understand the tongue and the will of the living God. The scriptures are the works of man, but life and all its hosts are the work of God. For all the manifold gifts of life, we do worship the fire of life, and the holy light of the heavenly order. We do worship the fire, the good and the friendly, the fire of life, the most beneficial and the most helpful, the fire of life, the most supporting, the most bountiful, that fire which is the house of the Lord. Behold now the child of light, who doth commune with the angel of life. Lo now, his strength is in his loins, and his force is in the muscles of his chest. He moveth his legs like a cedar. The sinews of his thighs are knit together. His bones are as tubes of brass. His limbs are like bars of iron. He doth eat of the table of the earthly mother. The grass of the field and the waters of the stream do nourish him. Surely the mountain bring him forth food. Blessed is his strength and beauty, for he doth serve the law. A sanctuary of the Holy Spirit is the body in which the fire of life doth burn with eternal light. We thank thee, Heavenly Father, for thou hast put us at a source of running streams, at a living spring in a land of drought, watering an eternal garden of wonders, the tree of life, mystery of mysteries, growing everlasting branches for eternal planting, to sink their roots into the stream of life from an eternal source.
What are we discussing tonight, friends?
Something I would like you to talk about. You've talked about the higher self within each individual. I wonder what is beyond the individual, and how whatever is beyond relates to this higher self within. Is there cosmic self, and if there is this higher self within us? How does that relate? Is it part of a sort of continuum? A divine spark within each person? And how does all this relate to the idea of gods almost external to individuals?
How many questions is this? Can we stop short of the gods? I think I've sort of got the gist of it, more or less. Anything else, friends?
Could you talk about the true communion between the guru and his devotee? We discussed gurus previously. I was thinking in terms of the obvious one between Jesus and his disciples.
Anything else?
I was going to ask about, it's partly linked to Christine's point, about the idea of grace. The Christian idea of grace being very necessary. The Buddhists say, work out your own salvation. Diligence, how does the yogi see grace?
Anything else? Thank goodness for that. So, what is the self beyond the self? What is the nature of the relationship of Guru and Chela? And what is grace? Is that right? Put that way, it's not quite so daunting. There is, of course, a dilemma in this question of the nature of the self at all levels. The dilemma is made more intricate by a contradiction that exists between the traditional teachings of Raj Yoga and Adhyatma Yoga and Jnana Yoga and Buddhism. Moreover, all the mysteries of the spirit are beset with conundrums, paradox. The basic dilemma of Atman or Anatta, in my humble judgment, is semantic. But if we could just recap briefly on what these concepts are, it might be of some use. The highest flights of Hindu philosophy are found in the Advaita Vedanta as expounded by Shankara and in the Upanishads. The Upanishads are a later section of the Vedas, and the Vedas is the world's most ancient body of sacred writings. The Upanishads themselves are ancient texts. The dates are not known. Dates are quoted, but different scholars give different dates, so the dates are not known. It doesn't matter, of course. The ancient seers did not share our concern for chronology, perhaps fortunately. They concentrated their powers on much more essential things. And the theme of the Upanishads is sublime, as the language of the Upanishads is sublime. It is tremendously affirmational. It is the supreme antidote to an age in which the death wish is commonplace. It is the supreme antidote to man's hatred of himself, which is a disease. Now, the teachings of the Upanishads are fundamentally simple and may be summarized as follows. That the supreme principle is Brahman. That Brahman is the divine ground of all being. Nothing exists independent of Brahman. Brahman, whose nature is Satchitanand, existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute, permeates all things. From Brahman all things proceed. To Brahman all things shall return. Every atom of existence is an expression of Brahman. Everything that lives and moves is an expression of Brahman. Brahman is the real. Brahman is the glorious and total fire of life. And in him we live and move and have our being. To quote from another great tradition. That particle of Brahman, which exists in every living organism, is the true substance of every living being. It is the fullness of the intelligence of every living being. It is the ultimate of it. And in man, that true being, that spark of the divine, is termed Atman. Atman is very frequently and quite inadequate to the point of error, translated as self with a capital S. It would be better to leave the translation just as Atman, since Atman is not to be equated with our notions of self. This divine principle in man, this God in man, this truth in man, is reflected in the Judeo-Christian tradition in the phrase, man is made in the image of God. This is our true substance, our true nature, our true likeness. Atman is indivisible from Brahman. Atman is Brahman. And the true destiny of man is to return to the source, to re-identify with his true nature, his God being. Because in the positive interpretation of the Upanishadic message, as affirmed in modern times by the great Vivekananda particularly. It is a powerful, potent energizer of the psyche. To connect with this transmission, to connect with this teaching, that our notions of limitation, our notions of folly and darkness are an illusion, because in our true nature we are none of these things. In our true nature we are all power, all wisdom, all beauty and all compassion. And the yoga that aspires to the knowledge of the true self is a yoga which abnegates the ego, abnegates egocentricity in order to discover that which is beyond thought, that which is beyond ego, which is the fruit of limitless thought. To discover what is beyond the mind, to discover what is beyond the petty, preposterous little ego. And in discovering, to allow the ego to die. This saying often causes difficulty in the minds of particularly Western people. But in this context, most certainly, death presupposes a rebirth, a full reformation, a triumphant discovery, the return to the source, the absorption of the ego into the divine. This is a wonderful teaching. It is life-giving, life-affirming, powerful. The Buddhist teachings take a different emphasis. There are close similarities between the teachings of the Buddha and the Vedanta, between the practices of Buddhism and the practices of yoga. This is not surprising. The Buddha was a Hindu prince living in the 5th, 6th century BC. He was an expression of the Hindu psyche. He was the fulfillment and the culmination of the wisdom process of the Hindu psyche. As a great teacher, he had the stamp of uniqueness in his words. As a great teacher also, he was reaffirming already ancient truths. As a great teacher, he was an iconoclast. And as a great teacher, he was also, as great teachers are in the full and truest sense, a revolutionary. Now, also as a great teacher, whether the great teacher is an Upanishadic sage or a Buddhist seer, an Arhat or a Bodhisattva, the primary concern, in my humble opinion, is not to enunciate the properly defined and eternal truth. The primary concern is to create a form of expression which is appropriate to a time, to a phase of history, to a human need, to be helpful. No form of words is truth. No philosophy, no matter how venerable or how venerated, no doctrine, no holy book is the truth. The truth is a living fact, beyond words. The truth dwells in the instant. The truth is a flash in the now. The living water that flows without containment. Now, I rather suspect that by the time of the Upanishadic sages even, the venerable wisdom of the Hindus had become the province of scholars and theologians and those whose concern was to play with ideas and to disagree with each other, instead of finding the essential unity which the truth of sacred books and wise men perennially expresses. And when the little ego comes to a teaching like the Upanishads, it can happen that there is a barrier to the knowing of the truth of the matter. The barrier is the web of words which the surface mind creates in order to explain the limitless to itself. And through this explanation, and much assistance from people called theologians of any school who exist, one gathers to explain God to us. Because of this, there is the endless web of the illusion of knowledge. And if yoga has any purpose at all, if the fire of the Holy Spirit has any function at all, it is surely to set aside, to burn up this illusion of knowledge, this vast and complex web of thought born of our preferences and our defense mechanisms, the invention of thoughts, and penetrate to what is beyond thoughts, to release the dynamic that is not of thoughts, to bring about the birth of understanding in a conscious mind from which the blockages of irrelevant thought process are removed. So, the more the teaching, the more marvelous and elaborate the teaching, the greater the danger of the illusion of knowledge, the greater the possibility that we are clinging to concepts, sheltering behind concepts, using wondrous teachings as a crutch, when they should be a bridge to the infinite. So, if we are informed concerning the nature of the self, the glories and the wonders of the true self, as stated in the Upanishads and elsewhere, the mind is predisposed to a number of tricks. And there are tricks more elaborate than this illusion of knowledge we have touched on so far. And one of the dangers is this: that what we seek, we find. And what we seek is our preference, our self-projection. And if we are zealously looking for some sort of inner light, we will find what we look for. The mind is extraordinarily cunning. It will supply to itself what it seeks. And what the man of faith in one tradition seeks, he will find, and what the man of faith of another tradition seeks, he will find. And it is the mind which is seeking, and the mind which is finding. The mind which is discerning the want, and the mind which is supplying the want. And this is very difficult. And whatever the truth may be, whether there is an inner self, an inner light, or whether there is not an inner self, an inner light, is only to be known when the seeker ceases. When the mind with all its tricks and all its subtle ability to create its own process of demand and supply, when all that has ceased, only then is the truth of the matter known. So many of our questings and our discoveries are just another pattern of illusion from which we must release ourselves, and from which nature will ensure that we release ourselves, because nature will not abide a static state for humanity for long. Nature will prompt us, nature will guide us, nature will impel us, compel us, explode upon us until we discover the truth of things, the truth that is not the defined truth, the truth that is not the readily provided truth, but is the living truth. That is not the law according to the hacks of the ruling establishment, but is the law which lives in the benign radiance of every atom and within ourselves. And so the Buddha came. And the Lord Buddha refused to answer any questions concerning the nature of the soul or of God. Essentially, his message was, do good, be good, and that will provide the momentum which will take you to whatever truth there may be. But he would not define it. He would not say what it was. Knowing well the tricks of the human mind, to eagerly seize upon the convenient explanation, indeed the illustrious explanation, and turn it into a problem. He refused to perpetuate that syndrome. He did the opposite. He made no reference to the self in man. And because of that, there arose the Buddhist doctrine of anatta, not self. The Hinayana Buddhist will not admit to the existence of a permanent self in man. Only a cluster of energies which makes up self, but which is not permanent, and which is moving towards a destiny of ultimate annihilation of that cluster of beings, of that cluster of impressions and energies. And the annihilation will result into the absorption into the whole, into nirvana. And that is salvation. So, you have this curious ambivalence in the great Indian tradition. One way expounds and seeks the absorption of ego into Atman, into Supreme Self, and the other way expounds and seeks the absorption of ego into nothing. We then come, of course, to many problems. We're not going into them. But the first thing to bear in mind is that nothing does not mean nothing. Nothing means no thing. And it is the absorption of ego into the reality of no thing, that which is beyond things, that which is beyond the cosmic manifestation, that which is beyond the field of samsara, the cosmic manifestation. For what it's worth, I'm personally inclined to think that for very many people, myself included, it is more helpful to affirm no thing, not self than it is to affirm self. But having said that, for a considerable proportion of those who seek to discover the truth in these matters, it is quite important to begin with the affirmation that is positive, that there is a divine in man, and that divine is the true nature, the true self, can be known, shall be known. Such is the benign intention of nature and the inner purpose of evolution. This is a rather difficult area. The problem is that the deluded ego can become overinflated and deceived by the Atman teachings. It can, in some, strengthen the ego rather than weaken it. The mantras of ego, the mantras of Atman affirmation, Soham Brahman, I am Brahman, I am God. The repetition, I am God, I am God, I am God, is not good for everybody. It is this that the Buddha sought to negate. On the other hand, such is the paradox. Only the strong ego, the strong and healthy ego, has the possibility within itself of that ripeness which can allow it to make the leap beyond itself into the unknown beyond itself. A weak ego, a distorted ego, cannot begin to move beyond itself. It is an absurdity to say to a sad and a weak little ego, give up the ego, renounce the self. That is not helpful. First, to the sad and weak little soul, it must be affirmed that your supposition concerning your state is a lie. You are strong. Divinity is within you. Arise. Know thyself. Know the light within. Move forward and experience fearlessly. Then there will be growth. Then there will be the fullness of the experience of self, of individuality. And then will come the problem of individuality. And the pain of individuality is the pain of separateness, the utter insufficiency of the petty little self to find and foster the essential ingredients for the growth of the soul. So, you can see there is a semantic problem, there is a teaching problem, and the nature of the problem does indeed require some maturity to perceive, and most particularly to apply oneself helpfully to. When the ego is strong, then the bias of teaching can be, with many people, must be, annihilation, denial of ego, because this elimination process is what nature requires us to accomplish. Shed the verbiage, shed the conceptualizing, and know, see what is beyond, what is within, without judging it, without presupposition. See it. Whatever it is, there is revealed great beauty, immense power. But it is not a beauty born of the mind. The mind is of the past. The mind is an echo of what has been. The mind is the fruit of conditioning. And the little ego is an inflated agglomeration of largely irrelevant factors. It must be burned up. Perhaps it's not entirely burned up. Perhaps not. But it's probably unhelpful to say so. Because we need to feel this total renunciation, this total elimination, this non-clinging to ego. What remains will be what we need. As it is, what remains is almost entirely what we don't need. So we need to know that which is beyond thought, that which is beyond the mind, that which is beyond the pattern of petty egocentricity, which is the result of the accumulation of the mind, the stagnant echo of the past. How do we find it? How do we know it? If we are the weak little ego, then we need the pattern and the panoply of traditions and ideas and sacred books and all that stuff to build us up. But so many of the human race now need that not. There is an ancient saying, the enlightened have no need of the scriptures. The unenlightened cannot understand the scriptures. It's one of these curious dilemmas. But for so many of the human race now, the old presentation of the teachings, so closely bound up with our defense mechanisms, our need to lean on something, be contained within something, to be cocooned psychologically, that must go. That must now explode. Elimination must carry it away, dissolve it. And so our yoga, surely, must be concerned in the first instance to awaken energies, vitality, strength, to eliminate the futile, and to point beyond the accumulation of thought, and to show that meditation is the shedding of ideation, including a venerated ideation that has no place, no right, no truth in the here and now. And so we come to the moment the knowing of the moment. The moment can only be known when I is not. What we know when I is not the truth of the instant. It is the fruit of our past conditioning. Life is not in the I. Death is to be I. Life is to be not I. When thought is not, enlightenment is. When thought is not, wisdom is. When thought is not, the truth of this thing shows itself. But the necessity is a fearless and a total awareness. A fearless and a total awareness in the here and now. We must be aware of what we fear. We must be aware of what is ugly. We must be aware of all the coquetries and subtleties and machinations of this cunning little mind to prevent itself from exposure. We must look. There must be no division between the seer and that which is seen. We must look and be it. And as awareness intensifies, then we will find, I think, that the grip of the past, the grip of the problem, the pain of separation will cease, because nature abhors a vacuum, and that which is beyond thoughts, that which is beyond the mind, will express itself. It cannot be defined, but it is release. It is freedom. It is wisdom in the now. And what is the role of the Guru? It seems to me, for what it's worth, that the true Guru is one now in the latter part of our 20th century who does not say, "Come to me, I'm important, I will tell you what to do and what to think." The true Guru is one who must point away from himself and show us that the truth to be known is the truth that is not revealed by another, but discovered through oneself, by oneself, for oneself. But the self which discovers is not the little I, because that discovery is only possible when I is not. The human race, I suspect, has reached a definite toddler stage, and further growth is possible only if and when we can move with definite steps towards no thing the little I will seek by many cunning ways, its indefinite extension and perpetuation. Consciousness must be clear and aware. It must see what is happening, and then the truth will flow. Then we will know. Then we will be. We will be what we are not. And in this there is great paradox. And the mention was made of the great teachers. What is the significance of their relationship with those they teach? The great visionaries of the ancient worlds revealed many significant things. But one of the profoundest utterances was that in the last analysis, the world we inhabit, the life we experience, is our self-projection. Possibly our collective self-projection, but certainly individually our self-projection. And if the true Guru appears, that true Guru is also our self-projection. And when the true Guru, the Christ or the Buddha, is moving towards us, it is really our own deeper being moving and revealing itself in its descent into union with the lesser vehicle of consciousness. So when the Christ being comes towards you, really, in the deepest sense, it is your own true nature stirring, extending, expanding itself to encompass you. The facts of the true experience of the identification of the Guru means that you and yourself are becoming one, and life and you are becoming one in a richer and momentous degree. When the Christ beheld another, when the Christ looked at another, fundamentally, the Christ essence, the Atman essence, the Christ essence in the Christ man, the Buddha essence in the Buddha man, was first identifying itself with the Atman, the Christ in the other. There was unity, unison between the Christ principle in the one and the other. And this was shattering for the ego level of the other, because the ego level was caught between the interactive current of the Christ principle reaching out towards itself, the same principle, the same self, but polarizing in manifestation. And the ego level of the other was caught between this, and there was trauma, there was shock. The ego that was ready would be transformed. The ego that was not ready would seek by any means to prevent this searing light from manifesting. And the cause of that light had to be destroyed. So to encounter the great teacher is never an easy experience, is always a traumatic experience. Because the Atman in the one is immediately fused with the Atman in the other. The Buddha figure, the Christ figure, will address himself not to you, but to the Atman within you, the wisdom, the potential within you, will invoke it. And those who are ready will experience transformation. But those who are not become the instruments for the deeper purposes of God through the manifestation of that counterforce which is called evil. So what is grace? What is transmission if we're thinking of the Guru? Transmission is that linking energy. When the Atman in the one salutes the Atman in the other. The meaning of Namaste, I salute the truth within you. When that truth acts with itself, upon itself, within itself, there is an interplay, and this is grace. As the Christ within, or the Buddha within, whichever phrase one wants to use, is effectively beginning to beam down into the conscious level of existence, then its effect may be termed grace. It is the subtle law of attraction, a cosmic psychological gravitational pull, the command of come unto me, which causes all things to seek, to look beyond themselves, to aspire, to be dissatisfied as they are, to need to know, to need to grow, to expand. And the fact of this pull, the cognition of it, the response to it, itself awakens, invokes the descent of the power from the higher principle to integrate with the lower and accelerate the growth process, which is not accumulation, but is elimination, is a refining away of the irrelevant, so that the true may be exposed. And when it is known, then it would appear. We find we have not discovered something new. We have found only what we already know, because we have found only what we already are. We have found ourselves. It has found us. And then there is the true. Did you wish to make any observation, friends? Let us then, friends, rejoice in this wise silence with a cup of tea. Yes, my dear, yes.
I was thinking about how to, or can we use our energy, when someone is sick, to help him? Can be used in a way of curing sickness, and how to work with that energy on some distance in our.
Maybe we can. Maybe we can. But first, if we would serve in that way, if we would serve in any way, the energy that flows, the healing force itself, is not I. This here is utterly incapable of helping anybody in any way whatsoever. This here is ludicrous. Ludicrous. Itself in conflict and confusion. Whatever its good intentions may be, it will only project from itself conflict and confusion. If creation is to be in the real sense, healing is to be in the real sense, inspiration in the real sense, this barrier must cease. This I must die. Then there is the possibility that healing can occur, that integration can occur, that beauty can be known. But I cannot do it. I can do nothing. But that which is not I, if it so discerns, can accomplish many things. We cannot do it for it. We cannot be ambitious for it. We cannot say, I will be a healer, or I will do this, this, or this, or this. No. Healing occurs only when I is not. He is greatest among you, who shall become the servant of all. When I is not, many things become possible. When I is, very little becomes possible. And that very little is most unimpressive. But when I is not, when yoga is known, when anatta is the fact, not self is the fact, then there is many possibilities. Many possibilities. Find out first the truth of this matter. And then even people like you and me, even people like us, have immense potential. But unless we do, it's just another illusion. Unless we do, it's just another illusion. Many, many illusions around.
The other night you were talking about the problem, that you have to sit with it, not move away from it for an instant, to really, not move away from the pain or it, etc. But if you do that, and you have to keep it in front of you, not let it get behind you, keep it in front of you, then how can you annihilate?
It's a curious thing, but I'm sure it can be verified in experience. But when you turn the energy of increased awareness upon any structure of thought, the irrelevance in that structure will fall away. The irrelevance in that structure will first of all rise up, and you will see it in all its overtones, if you're resolute. Because you see, you understand. And as you look at anything born of thought, awareness will diminish it, and total awareness will diminish it totally. It is so. Turn the energy of awareness upon any thought structure. Look at it with intense awareness, and it will dissolve. It's not that the answer comes, it's that the problem dissolves. The answer's already there.
What's the difference between having a thought structure in terms of rage or anything like that, and the acting out if it was involved with a person? Is it just a question of degree? And
If you're totally aware, you are not in the grip of anything like that. You're not. Because this is born of non-awareness. It's the instinctive nature, the pattern of the defense mechanisms asserting themselves. And awareness, great awareness, is the only release from them. Face it with great awareness, and it will dissolve. That's what awareness does. That's what meditation is. Awareness.